Hello, my name is Nolan File. I got top 64 at the European World Championship qualifiers last weekend, and I just wanted to share my deck profile. Before I begin, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Adam for keeping me company throughout the weekend, and to everyone from the Edinburgh Yu-Gi-Oh community. You guys are all super supportive, and I really appreciate it. So, getting right into it, I played 3 Lubellion, 3 Magnamute, 3 Serenir, 1 Druisworm, and 1 Baldrake. I really liked the maxed out ratio of the Bystials. It felt really good. I saw a lot of the other lists that topped had cut the Baldrake and moved it to the side. I didn't quite agree with that, but I think it's okay. Having an extra name is just good, and sometimes when you don't have Branded Beast set up, it's just the best thing to add off of Magnamut on turn 1 to have a disruption for your opponent's turn. Having the triple Serenir also just feels really good, because it's the only other Bystial that gets you into the rest of the engine. It gets Lubellion into the graveyard, which is super important to set up the spells and traps, and sometimes if you already have the Lubellion, you can get both Branded Beast and Regained on turn 1, which just feels really powerful. For the Rokket engine, I played what seems to be pretty standard these days. 2 Tracer, 1 Caliber, 1 Rocket Recharger, and then the 1 Absolrouter. I've seen some people play the 3rd Tracer, I've seen some people cut the Caliber. I really like this. It does the job. It has pretty good grind game, having 2 targets to summon off the Tracer, so come turn 3, the follow-up off of just a Tracer is really powerful. And having another level 4 tuner in the deck to summon off the Tracer is really powerful, because you can make Dispatter with a Bystial and the Tracer, and then use the Dispatter to summon a level 4 monster from your banished, and synchro with the Caliber to make Borreload Savage, which just really raises the ceiling on the boards that the deck can make. So I quite like that. And then for normal summons, I played 3 Seifert, 2 Black Metal Dragon, and the Red Eyes to go with it. So the 3 Seifert is pretty self-explanatory. It's easily the best card in the deck. It gets you into your level 4 Chaos Dragons. It gets you into Lubellion. You can send Serenir off of it to get Magnamut, and then send the Lubellion off the Serenir to get another Bystial. It's just really powerful. You want to max out that for sure. I put the 2 Black Metals. I was thinking about trying out the Assault Synchron package in these 3 slots originally, but I decided against it. I felt like you just kind of want a good, solid, normal summon to just get a Dark into your graveyard and start the plays off, and after Seifert, the Black Metal is the best at that. I only chose to play 2 because it's not good to draw in multiples, and the more of this card you play, the more likely you are to draw both the Black Metal and the Red Eyes to go with it, and that always feels a little bit bad. The Red Eyes, you would maybe even play it without the Black Metals in the deck. It feels really good to summon this off of Seals, and the follow-up that you get just by having this card is really powerful, especially bringing it back off of the effective Rocket Recharger. It feels really good. And then just to round off the monsters, played the white, the black, and the Legionnaire. I chose not to play the Chaos Emperor. It's the only other card that you could squeeze in here potentially. You just don't really need it that much. Dispatter allows you to access the banished already, so there's not really much need to play another potential brick card in the deck, even though it is a really cool card. For spells, I played triple Quick Launch, triple Chaos Space. Pretty self-explanatory. These cards are really powerful. I thought about playing Shadow's Light in the deck, but I think unfortunately it just doesn't quite do the same thing that some of the other starter cards do. It's nice because it can tie the engine together by turning any one Bystial into a Tomb, or turning a Rocket monster into Seifert, but if you just don't have a way to start, you kind of just don't go anywhere. So unfortunately it didn't make the cut. And then finally I played the 2 field spells and Regained and Beast. I saw Gabriel Netz's group had cut Branded Beast from the deck. I don't really agree with that personally. I think while Regained is really powerful, and obviously it's way better in terms of the resource game and the follow-up that the deck can produce, I think having Beast in the deck just makes the strength of the turn 1 board and the resilience of the turn 1 board so much stronger that you kind of can't justify cutting it. You play 3 Serenir in the deck, which means that if you draw away to Lubellion and the Serenir, then the Serenir effect really isn't doing anything, and that seems like a bit of a waste of potential. And also, in any kind of control matchup, having the Branded Beast is super, super powerful. I think you really weaken your game against a deck like Labyrinth by not putting the Branded Beast in. And also, just respecting the metagame right now, and a lot of people are on main deck Dark Ruler, and if you make a big monster board with Branded Regained, and they slam down a Dark Ruler, suddenly you have no interruptions at all. Another weird thing that I noticed with the other list that topped, cutting Beast, and they also put, what's it called? The Bystial Baldrake in the side deck. So in the end phase on turn 1, you're searching Druisworm normally to have an extra layer of interruptions, but with no Branded Beast, the only way to get the Druisworm into the graveyard is either to tribute it with seals, which means you're not getting the follow-up by summoning Magnamute off the seals, or by somehow getting Tracer onto the field and then popping it that way, which just doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. So I think playing the Beast is definitely the right call, even though it's kind of annoying to draw, especially going second. But if you are going against a deck where you feel like you can beat them in the grind game without it, you can just cut it going second. And then finally, for non-engine, I chose to play mostly hand traps for this event. I know a lot of people in this deck have moved on to just playing board breakers, like Book of Eclipse, Dark Ruler in the main, sometimes just Book of Moon. I didn't really like those cards. I felt like a lot of the times you go for a really modest board of like Seal Savage with Branded Beast set up, and when you have cards that are intended to be defensive that aren't live on turn 2, it really makes you a lot more susceptible. So I played 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 2 Nibiru, and then to supplement that I played 3 Triple Tactics in the main. I really liked the tactics in the main. Hand traps were a lot less popular than I had initially expected, but even just as a card to break the board on turn 3, it's really, really powerful. I liked it a lot. I would not have played any fewer copies of it. I played 2 Nibiru in the main just as an extra bit of respect for Kashtira. I think game 1 most of the time the players are going for a bigger board by making Shangri-Ira and then summoning Fenrir, and you can just bypass their whole board just by Nibiru. They're not going to know what you're on in game 1, so you can just Nibiru them in game 1. They won't be expecting it, and then once they find out you're on dragons, they might just make a Rise Heart pass, in which case you can side into more targeted board breakers just to deal with a Rise Heart. So all in all, these 8 cards are functionally outs to a Rise Heart, and then the Ash Blossom is just as an extra bit of disruption going first, or just to hit very specific key cards in certain matchups, like hitting Branded Fusion, hitting Welcome Labyrinth, things like that. Overall, I was pretty happy with the main deck. I don't think Imperm performed terribly well on the day, but I think that's mostly just variance. I played against a lot of Kashtira, and when I drew Imperm going first and set it, it just felt really mediocre. I would get hit with all kinds of board breakers, and I would have preferred something either in the hand or just something to have to break their board if they make it to turn 3. Moving on to the extra deck, I played Striker Dragon, Pisty, Romulus. These are the three Holy Trinity Dragon Engine cards, all really powerful, don't really require any explanation at all. I played one seal. I think it's generally agreed upon now that one seal is correct over two seal. You can always get this back with Chaos Space, Branded Regained, Bystial Dispatter. There's so many ways to get it if you need it for a second time, but it very rarely comes up. Usually the first one is all you need. I played Dark, very powerful card, especially in the mirror match. It helps you just get an extra body on the field and push for Guard Dragon arrows to get to Borderland, which is basically your go-to going second play to try to break the board and set up a big guy that's very hard to deal with. In one of my 2 flex spots, I chose to play Azalea for this event. I quite liked it. In theory, it's really good against like anti-spell or other floodgates that people will side in, and if you're not prepared for that, it can hurt this deck really bad. You can't activate your field spells when you get hit with the anti-spell, so you can't use your engine in the way that you normally would, so having a way to out something like that is very good. I also wanted a way to force my way through a Rise Heart if my opponent just wanted to sit on it. Without Azalea in the deck, the only other way to out an Rise Heart by just playing your engine is like Nightmare Unicorn, and that's just really expensive. It's a link 3 instead of a link 2, takes a discard, and at that point they've already sapped enough resources from your hand that it's unlikely that you're going to win that game. So I really liked it. It came up a few times where it was really strong. Definitely requires changing the way you structure your turn going second, but I think it's really powerful and probably deserves to be in the deck going forward. Speaking of Nightmare Unicorn, I chose to cut that from my extra deck for this event. I felt like it almost never came up, and with Druid Worm and Chaos Angel in the deck, you have ways to deal with things that can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, so it just wasn't needed. So the only link 3 that I played was Triple Burst, and it gives you the arrows for Pisty, and that's about it. I played the access code still. It came up a couple times where I was pushing on turn 3 in a mirror match, again, in I think round 10, I want to say. I had stolen my opponent's Borderland with triple tactics, made access code with it, pumped it to 73, then used the effect to destroy his last monster, banishing the Dark Charmer, and then drew, with no cards in my hand, off the top a Magnamut to get the last 700 damage per game. So that was really nice. And then finally, Borderlands, really powerful card. I barely made this at all on the day, to be honest. Only a few times. You don't make it going first because it just is a high investment monster that dies to every single board breaker in the game. And if your opponent's playing Dark and they out the Borderland and then they summon it back, you really don't have a way to deal with it at all besides making Seal, which if the Seal gets used on turn 1 and you can't get back to it with your engine, you're just in trouble. For Synchro monsters, I played standard Borderland Savage Dragon. Made this almost every game going first. I've seen some people stray away from that, but I think there's a lot of random board breakers people are jamming, like Dark Hole, Lightning Storm, and just being able to negate those and stop them from just completely disrespecting your board is really nice. I played Baron and Dissipator, and then finally Chaos Angel for the 3 rank or Synchro 10s in the deck. I really liked these. I think I only made Chaos Angel once or twice. I made it in a mirror match in round 1, and I used it to banish my opponent's Branded Beast, and he just, gave me the handshake because that's the last out in the deck. It's really hard to deal with. A lot of people don't see it coming, even though the decks or the card's been out for a few months now. It's just really powerful, and sometimes when you get into an awkward position, you can just stick a Chaos Angel with both protections and then just wait it out until you get enough gas to go for game. And then the last 2 spots in the extra deck, I played a Tim. A Tim is really powerful. When you end up in a situation where all you have is Bystials, especially in a grind game, this is very key in getting you back into the rest of your engine. It just ties the deck together really nicely. It doesn't come up all that often, but I think it's really good just as a way to make the deck be a little bit more cohesive. And then the final flex spot in the deck, I chose to play Evil Swarm Nightmare. It is kind of a god card against Kashtira. Obviously, they're on a lot of board breakers right now, so choosing to make this over the Savage is a little bit suspect, but it came up once in my matches where I had drawn Eradicator that I'd sided in against Kashtira, so I just made this with Eradicator, and that's basically checkmate against that deck. Because they lose all of their breakers, all they can do is try to summon Unicorn or Fenrir, and then it immediately gets booked, and there's nothing that they can do. Overall, pretty good. I think a lot of people have been playing Zeus in the Dragon Link extra deck, just to make tactics a little bit more effective, a board breaker against Kashtira, but I don't know if it's strictly necessary. I liked the cards that I played. I would maybe consider cutting Evil Swarm Nightmare just because it's a little bit niche, but in the matchups that is good, it's very good. And then finally, in the side deck, I played 3 Droll and Lockbird, just the best hand trap against a lot of strange decks that can be very difficult to handle otherwise. Obviously it's really nice against dragons, and that is a deck that was very, very popular at Euros. And for good reason, it's quite powerful. But yeah, there's a lot of situations where you can load your deck up with board breakers, and if they just play their deck the way it's intended, then you just can't beat it. And Droll stops a lot of those decks. I cited the 3rd Nibiru for the matchups that it's good against. I considered increasing the deck count to play the 3rd in the main deck, but it's a little bit niche. It's not good into every matchup. It's obviously not great against the more control matchups like Labyrinth, which I didn't face at all, go figure. But yeah, against Kashtira, against dragons or other combo decks, the 3rd one comes in. And then I played Pankratops. I wanted additional outs to Arise Heart in my deck, and Pankratops is really nice because it's not a spell card or a trap card, and I think you kind of have to respect the possibility of Forbidden Lance. It's also just generally a really good going second card. I expected a lot of anti-spell or other floodgates like Summon Limit to come in from the side deck, and having Pankratops in lets you hedge against those while also being good against the actual board that the decks put up themselves. So for that, I really liked it. I played 3 Cosmic Cyclone. This is, I think, by far the best back row hate in the format right now. Obviously, the Floodgate heavy lab is setting 5, and for that, you might prefer to have something like Feather Duster, but I think there's so many outs to Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm, like Lord of the Heavenly Prison, Solemn Judgment, things like that, that I would personally not feel comfortable just slamming that on the board and hoping for the best. Cosmic is good enough. You can out the Floodgate that is stopping you from playing the game. And it's also really good against Runic, which this deck can struggle with otherwise sometimes. So I really liked it. It was probably my favorite card in the side deck for the whole event. And then I chose to side 3 Dark Ruler No More. Just the best way to deal with the Kashtira board, assuming they don't get to Forbidden Lance off of like a Prosperity or something, but yeah, it's really nice. I don't like it in the main deck just for the reasons that I mentioned before about having going second cards that are also live when you go first, but when you know you're going second in games 2 or 3, then it's really nice. And then for the last few spots, I played 3 Eradicator. I debated Anti-Spell, but I felt like the hand knowledge from Eradicator and the effectiveness against Labyrinth made Eradicator just a lot better. And then finally, I cited Scarlet. But yeah, overall I felt really happy with the deck. I'm very glad that I got a chance to get a premier event top with it. I've been playing Dragons for, I think, over 2 years now, so it feels really good to have something to show for it.